G'day, I'm Debbie O'Shea, and this is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode number 131. This podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Turrbal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They were the first music makers on this land. Hello everyone, welcome to Real Teachers, Real Stories. My guest is Kathryn Woodruff. She is from Mackay. You are going to love this first part because, both Kathryn and I like to talk. So I'll chop this into two parts. So this first part, we hear a little about her background and some interesting stories about her teaching experience. And I forgot to ask on camera her age. I asked if that would be all right, and then I forgot. I asked beforehand, but she did say that if I asked, she would divulge her age as the same as the trombones. 76 trombones. See, so I did deprive her of the opportunity to quickly sing 76 trombones, but I love hearing about her experience in regional Queensland, one of our bigger regional centres. She talks about the challenges that she had and some very good advice around composite classes and about people taking music seriously. So I think you're going to love listening to Kathryn Woodruff telling you a little of her real stories from her real teaching. And I would like to welcome to the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, the lovely Kathryn Woodruff. Hello, Kathryn.
Good morning. How are you, Debbie? I'm almost awake and focused, I think.
Good. I am almost awake and focused too. I've had my morning walk. I'm ready to go. However, occasionally I'll have a little sip of my coffee out of my new coffee mug. Now, I'm going to start by reading this little brief bio that you sent me of yourself, okay?
All right. Thank you.
So this is for all the listeners. Are you ready? So this is what Kathryn wrote about herself. Here we go. A grandfather who paid $100 for a house and $100 for a piano. A great aunt with a memorial in Edinburgh for her contribution to singing, playing and composing music. It was probably inevitable that I would gravitate towards music education. I taught as a classroom teacher for 10 years and developed a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of music and learning. A pivotal 16-week in-service program in music education marked a turning point in my career, sparking a passion for music education that has since become a driving force. With a career spanning 40 years, my Mackay colleagues and I have established ourselves as a leading voice in music education, inspiring countless students and educators alike with innovative approaches and dedication to the power of music. We were not only trained by Judy and Comiskey, we were personally inspired by Lois Choksy, Denise Bacon and Katalin Forrai, the last of who played music games with my son Stephen, who sat in his stroller in the Conservatorium theatre in Mackay. Oh my goodness, there's so much I want to talk about in there.
Well, Stephen at the moment is 33, so we are going back a few years. We'd have to say he no longer sits in his stroller.
Well, let's hope not. Though we don't want to judge if someone wants to sit in their stroller. Now, so much in there, but for those people who are listening who may not be familiar with geography of Queensland, Australia, Mackay is one of our regional centres in Queensland. I used to holiday there every year with my family. We would drive up. So it was basically a day's drive from Brisbane north to Mackay. So on a plane, what is it, an hour and
and a half.
Hour and a half on a plane. So it's far enough away that you guys had to set things up for yourself. You couldn't be popping into regional to the capital cities. So I think its relative isolation made Mackay in music education what it is. There's some amazing people up there. Tell us about the 16-week in-service program that arrived.
Oh, the 16-week in-service program was way back in 1976. And when I was a classroom teacher, the principal said, does anyone want to do this 16-week course in music education? And it was run in Brisbane. And we went to not Camp Hill State School, because I went there for another course with John Hesse, but it was in Annerley at the state school there. And we did this whole 16-week course. And, of course, it was not based on the current syllabus we have now, and it wasn't really it wasn't Kodai based, because we didn't know about it then in the 70s, but we did learn a lot of good things from that course, and that did lead me towards being a music teacher. So it was a very invaluable course, and I am still friendly with some of the people that I met at that course, one of them being Sister Valerie Houston.
Oh, love Sister Val.
Goes a long way back, doesn't she? And she still looks the same age, which makes me wonder why I don't look the same age. But never mind. So that was a great course. So that's what that was. After that, I went to teach in Dysart State School, because somewhere in the middle there I got married and my husband was working in the mine, so I went to Dysart, and they asked me to be the inaugural music teacher there. And I arrived in the third term in those days, with a big 16-week third term. And by the end of the third term, we had a big carols concert at Christmas and so on. And the P&C were so thrilled to have a music teacher. They gave me this, for what reason I don't know, a silver candelabra as a present. They must have thought I had a different home to what I have. But, I valued that silver candelabra that they gave me, because they were appreciative of having a music teacher in Dysart.
Oh, I love it. Very Liberace.
Well, yes, it certainly wasn't my playing they gave it to me for, possibly my singing, but certainly not my playing. Now, what happened after that? I went into Mackay then, and this is a great part of my story. I managed to meet the powerhouse, who was a Carmel Davison, because I got a job at a Catholic school in Mackay, and her daughter went to that school. And as soon as I had the job, she phoned me up and she said, Kathryn, you must teach this developmental music course, and told me all about it. And she was so keen on this approach coming to Mackay that she said to Judy Johnson, will you come up and run a course for us here? And Judy thought, why would I go to Mackay? It's a long way. And so she said, well, yes, I will, if you get 40 people to do the course. Carmel got 40 people to do the course. And that's how we happened to have the Judy Johnson course. And occasionally Anne Comiskey came up in between. And we had these intensive weekends. And then they went away, and the following intensive at the end of the term, we had to stand up and show what we could do. Now, somewhere along the line, Carmel thought that we needed to put on a performance. I think when Judy said, you must perform these songs and so on. And so apparently Anne Comiskey says the first time she actually came up to watch our performance, and she said, who are these ladies? They've got sparkly hats and boas on, and they actually, it was like a vaudeville act, really. So that made a deep impression on Anne Comiskey, as you can imagine.
Yes, Judy and Anne still talk about that. They were blown away because, yes, anyone who's been involved in Kodai-based courses or most music education courses, there's often a performance assessment, and it might be a sing and play or sing in canon with a partner or whatever. So there is a performance in quotation marks, but Yes. In fact, I think the last time I spoke to Judy, something came up about the Mackay ladies and the big joyous giggles they got at your interpretation of what the performance would be, because you would meet in between those weekends, wouldn't you? And you'd practice together, of course, because you didn't have that regular weekly thing that maybe a capital city person would have. So you guys helped each other. So no, your uniqueness is still remembered, and it just, like you said, I think it makes you quite a powerhouse in that Mackay Centre, and we want to keep that strong. Now, I'm going to pull you back here and ask you, as a teacher, how would you define success? Now, I know part of your answer will be receiving a silver candelabra, but apart from that, how would you define success?
I think that music has to be a joyful experience for children, and it has to be truly musical, and they have to learn something. And I always remember a mother saying to me, her little girl went into, was years ago, I think it was probably before preschool even, and she had day one, and the mother said, "What did you do today?" And she said, "Oh, a bit of this, a bit of that." And she said, "Oh, in music, we learnt that music has a beat." And so she learnt this thing, and when we learnt about beat, and we picked up another person I've got to mention, of course, is Judy Crean, because Judy Crean wrote all these little ditties and songs, and she used to say to the children, music, no, not music has a beat. It was, in my chest I feel a heartbeat, keeping steady all day long. And now I've lost the rest of that because I'm a bit nervous. But it was a time that we sang about the fact that music also had a heartbeat. And I'll remember that sometime and send it to you. But you might know that one.
Yeah, I can't. I think I've heard it. I can't recall it. We'll see if we can grab it later. We will stick it in the show notes. Okay.
Yeah, yes, that's right. I'll put the whole thing out. It finished there, beat just like a heartbeat every time we sing a song. And but we'll do that, and we'll do that with lots of things that I will tell you about if people haven't used that material. So they felt that they were learning something, these children, learning something intellectual, although they wouldn't have said that at the time. So they've got to learn something, but they've also got to feel joy, which they should feel in all their lessons. But it's usually only principals that say, well, another school I arrived after the first week, the principal said, "So, are you all enjoying yourself? Are you all having fun?" And I thought, yes, but do you ever ask that of the maths teacher or the English teacher? Are they all having fun?
That's right. And I think we've got to be careful that it's not just about joy and fun, that there is rigor as well.
That's right.
It's wonderful. We've got the joy and the fun.
Yes, it is.
But yes, I love that you've got to have that. They're actually learning something too. Otherwise, you may as well just put on the Wiggles.
Well, that's what I think too.
Yeah.
And, because it's easier, isn't it, really? And we can sing along. No, I know what you mean. Exactly right. They can do it themselves if they're just listening to music. Anyway.
And I know this is a very hard question, this next question I'm going to ask you, because your career has been so rich and long. It has been long and it has been rich. But what has been a memorable creative lesson or lesson segment? Like, those moments, and it's sort of sprinkled through, but is there something that pops out in your memory that made that lesson really special?
Yes, a couple of things. To start with, for some reason, I love doing compound time. And I always started right from the beginning. With we would sing a seesaw up and down, and then we'd do seesaw Marjorie Daw. And these children would walk to the first one and skip to the next one, and there were heaps. So right from the beginning, we learned that there was a difference between basically a song that you would walk to and a song that you would skip to. So that's not really one lesson segment, but I did a lot of work there. I always remember once when I was doing ties with the children, I said, look, I have just written a song called I Love My Dog. I love my dog, or whatever tune I used at the time. And then I said, and I wrote up the rhythm on the board. It was very basic, 2 metre and anacrusis, love my dog. And then I said, but I really love my dog. I just think that love has got to be a longer word. I love my dog. And so we worked out that we needed more beats in this. You know, we wanted a long, and they were, well, you can make the tar into it too. And I said, but it's longer than that. And we worked out that we really had far too many beats for the bar. And then we found out that we could actually tie the sound through the bar line into the next bar line, you know. And the first time I ever do a tie, I always do the proper little tie, but I always put a little bow in the middle of it. So it looks like I've tied it. And I take that off very soon. But they just, when they see that first, they think, oh, yes, you've tied those sounds together. And then, of course, I got to dog. And dog, I thought dog deserved much more than just one beat, you know. So we actually made dog a fair bit longer. And, you know, we just chatted about it and just silly things like that. That's one thing I can remember, but I don't know. You don't do a lot of stuff that's creative because you go to too many workshops and seminars and you get most of your ideas from other people, don't you?
Oh, yes, but absolutely everything you do is creative, though, because what you do is build on other people's ideas.
Yes.
And you implement their ideas and then build on them. But what I love about your stories about the lessons is that they're hooked into narrative, and like kids remember stories, like and how you really love your dog, so love has to be longer, and attaching it to meaning, which makes the learning more memorable for them. Like rather than when I learnt music, it was like there's a black dot and you put your finger here. Like that's how I learnt music, and it was initially it was quite devoid of sound. Like I did manage to produce sound on the piano, but it wasn't connected. But you've connected it to story and heart and sound and meaning, not just a symbol, because we've got to add, you know, to the symbol.
Yes, and I'm a bit of a sketcher, so I often do little drawings on the board, and that kids are very fascinated by that because I drew an elephant and it actually looks, well, they know it's an elephant, put it that way. They don't think it's a tree. So whereas I'm not a fantastic artist, I do a little bit of sketching if I need to. And another thing I do, which is different, and this is by the by, I worked at a school for the deaf in Mackay for many years, and I learnt a bit of deaf signing. Mm-hmm. And I learned how to sign songs. And I find that you really, you know, if you're teaching them a new song and you do the signing with the song, it hooks them right in. They watch you and they can see that you're painting a picture with your hand, because that tends to be what you do with signing songs. You're not literally spelling out the words. You're doing, well, I'll have to put my phone down here. Oh, dear me, I hope this works. But if
that works, that's good.
If I wanted to do 1, 2, 3, Johnny has a flea died, Johnny cried, 1, 2, 3. Or if I did seashell, seashell, sing a song for me. Sing about the ocean, sing about the sea. And I forgot to do shell, seashell, seashell. So the signs are beautiful, and they do hook into you when you do signing as well. But I only know a few songs. You know, I learned a few songs, not everything.
No, that's great. And I think that deaf for hearing impaired kids, as well as kids who are not hearing impaired, having the physical helps too, doesn't it?
Yes, and I must tell you, I had a gorgeous little boy who loved music. He was profoundly deaf. And, you know, I clapped a little 4-beat rhythm for the children to write. And he looked at my hand and he wrote it. And most of the class said, "Oh, Miss, can you do that again? We didn't hear it."
Yeah.
I thought
How
he was young, didn't
fabulous.
hear it, but he wrote it, and he wrote it perfectly well because he watched my hands. He knew what I was doing. So it's just amazing, isn't it? We don't perhaps realise the gift we have of hearing until we meet someone who doesn't have the gift.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we might have got off the topic there a bit with creative things, but they're just some of the things that I did or I do. Yeah.
No, I love it. And anyone who listens to my podcast, well, thank you for listening. And those people who do listen, they know that off topic is often the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, what is one piece of music every student should experience? And that doesn't, you could think art music, or it could be a song. We could even go to rhyme. Like, what's something essential that you think every student should experience?
I found that very difficult.
Mm.
I really did. I don't think I can't for myself. If you said to me, "What is your favourite song?" I'm not sure I could give you one. I just thought I'd pick out a few. This is a cop out. A few pieces that I've done over the year. Back in that 16-week course, we had a resource called here we go again. I've forgotten it. Adventures in Music.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through all these pieces and always remember doing Air Gay from a ballet by Gluck. And it was very obvious introduction ABA song. And I remember little grade oneers, we listened to it and we talked about it, but we went on a picnic and we scurried around during the introduction because it's a very scurrying introduction. And then we started walking to our picnic spot. And then, of course, the B section took over and we sat down and we ate our picnic and we had a little rest and a little bit of scurry music came back in to lead back to the A section again. So we quickly packed up our picnic and we went home. And that was and I would just remember that because it's probably the first time I'd ever done anything like that, being my first music course.
Yeah, but that is magic. Like, what a great piece of music to teach form. And it's coming back to the themes that keep coming back as I'm talking to you. It's storytelling and it's movement, and it's hooked into how you actually educate children. But that is a great sounding piece of music. I love that. Okay, give us another one. And do you know what? Before you do that, I just
Morning, I
want to
was
say,
driving to school. Sorry, I was driving to school and I had ABC Classic on and I was listening to the Anvil Chorus by Verdi and I thought, oh, what a great piece. I'll let the kids hear that when we get to school. So that was a piece of music that just popped up and I thought, this is a fantastic piece of music. And, of course, it's very active with these anvils being struck, and, and I quickly told them the story about the gypsies and how they were, and the whole thing was about the Spanish gypsies. Well, I mean, the opera was about more than that, but that was just a piece that I brought in at that moment because I heard it and it was a great piece of music. And, it was in the middle of it, you're waiting for these anvils to start and the kids can physically get in there and think that they're hammering some metal with their anvils and they really enjoyed that because of the movement and the action.
Mm.
But I won't go on because there's hundreds of pieces you can do that with.
they're fabulous pieces. And can I say that I could not choose just one? It's actually a mean question. Like you, if someone said, what's my favorite piece of music? It would probably vary from day to day, and never could I pick just one anyway. So
No.
I would cop out as well.
Thank you. And another one, I just remember when Idea of North started singing and they were completely a cappella and did lots of percussive noises. And I used to love playing one of those to the children, like Muscanada. And I used to say, what can you hear in that piece? Well, they could hear everything in that piece. They could hear a bass drum and a bass guitar, and they could hear lots of percussion, and they kept saying what they could hear. And of course, at the end of the piece, I could say, well, all you heard was the human voice, because all that piece was made by people singing. And that's an interesting thing to let them know just how wonderful the human voice can be. So I liked using that sort of thing too. But we could go on all day about pieces of music because there are too many.
Well, I think we should put in a link to Idea of North, just in case there are people who don't know them, and maybe I might be able to find the piece you're speaking about. But otherwise, we'll put in at least a link to Idea of North, because, yeah, what a great activity to do with kids.
Well, I have that. I have about 5 CDs of, if they are still playable anymore. I can. But, you know, these days we don't have the CD players. But I've got that piece anyway, Mas Canada, which is in, I suppose, Portuguese, if it's from Brazil, I think it was. I think it was a piece by Joe Beam, or one of those jazz people because I love jazz as well, jazz and blues. So they often feature in my list of things to let kids hear.
Yes. I love it. All right, here we go. I don't want to be negative, but we're going to put it as a challenge. The biggest challenge that you faced as a music teacher, what do you think was your biggest challenge, and how did you address it?
Well, I had 2 challenges. I think the first one, not the first one, one of them came very suddenly when our dear friend Judy became ill and could no longer teach, and I took over her country circuit. And then I realised that I was teaching a 145-minute lesson to 7 grades with about 9 children, all in the one room. And then we often had P1, 2 together, or sometimes we'd have 3, 4, 5, or sometimes we'd have 5, 6, 7. So that was a challenge. And also my first Mackay school was multi-age. It's all the grades were multi-age. That's the way they set the school up. So that was something I just worked around and could do in the end. With the little one teacher school, you're very lucky because the children in those schools are very caring of each other. And I would start off with doing a few little games that were probably definitely meant for my preps and ones and so on. And the big kids were more than happy to join in. I said, are you happy to join in with my little, grade 1 game? Yes, they were. Yeah. So I did a little bit of work with the ones, and then we had teachers' aides, and I would find some sort of little worksheet then for my little ones to reinforce what I'd done with them while I was teaching the older kids. But it's quite difficult to address all the syllabus needs in one room, but then the children are very keen and quite good at they're quite good at picking these things up anyway. Just with 2 classes together, I just found out that I had a 1-2. I would take them basically through to the end of what I expected them to know at the end of grade 2, because I knew that I would have the grade 1s again the next year, and they would. And I just found that if I used I try to use different repertoire. Mm-hmm. So I was doing the same concepts again, but I was doing it so they weren't bored to tears. Although some teachers will say, look, they don't get bored to tears and you can bring repertoire back anyway. But I used to try and do that. And with the older kids, I didn't think I could ever get them quite as far as I would have got them if they were in a single class. But I tended to do a lot of work with mi, re, do, lo, la, lo, so. I found that tone set in the upper school worked very well, and heaps of songs and things that you can do with that tone set that they thought were fun and they enjoyed. And there are a lot of upper school. There are songs that I do in the upper school that have only got a so, me and la in them. And they're bouncy and they're fun, like pizza. You would do pizza, pizza, daddy-o. You do use, that's so me la. Mm. And another one is one of the versions of Step Back Baby, or where, step back, baby, step back. And sorry about the voice, but that also is so me and la. So you can do a lot of things with the right repertoire with these. But the other big thing, of course, as you would know, is Do schools take music seriously? Do they think it's a legitimate subject? Getting back to, did you have fun today? Are you enjoying yourself? That sort of thing. And of course, quite often the one thing that in the favour, I suppose, of this is that I could actually give, I didn't, but I could have told my principal anything really in report card time, because he had no idea what I was talking about. He used to look, not that so much, but he used to look at my lesson plans and he'd say, oh, very good, which meant I don't know what you're talking about, but okay. Mm-hmm. Because it's, it's things like that, I suppose. But you've got to get up on assembly. You've got to talk about what the music program is doing. You've got to have performances on assembly to let them see. I don't know why. I at one other school I was at, this loved teacher was leaving, and I had this as a surprise, but I taught the whole school a goodbye canon, and every class. And then on the assembly, when she was going, this teacher, the whole school stood up and sang this song, and all the teachers were stunned because they'd never ever heard up to that point a whole school singing unaccompanied this one song. And I had the sixes strategically set up in groups around the other grades to help with the canon part. So, I was leading one of the three parts, and the groups were leading the other, and we could do the whole thing in canon, and just things like that to let them know that we can do this wonderful stuff and we can make performances and that sort of thing. You've got to let them know what music is capable of and how good it is and how it brings people together. They must know that, you'd think. They even sing at football matches, don't they? Sometimes. Mm-hmm. So it permeates every part of our life. So I don't know why they suddenly think it's not necessary in the classroom.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure either, because I am quite flummoxed by that suddenly, yes, certain administrations can suddenly think music's not important when it's obvious that it is. And it's really sad that we have to sell it. But for some reason, when some people get into positions in education, they just think, right, well, what we have to do is sit at desks and learn to read and write, and that's what's important. And anybody who is, any sort of educator knows that it's a lot more than just that, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. But you can win. I mean, you have to work very hard, but you can win people over if you put the effort into it. And sometimes, of course, you can't, but you have to try. Mm-hmm. And that's what you do. You keep promoting what you do and letting them see the results of what you do. So yes. That's about it, I think. We'll get depressed if we consider this. It's like watching Mr. Holland's Opus, which they dragged out of the archives over Christmas when the rating season is gone, and they played the movie. I hadn't seen it for about, 30 or so years. But, that was always a case where after all these years they decided that they would just cancel the music program for budget reasons. Do you remember that old movie?
Yeah, I have not seen that for so long. I must.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I must watch it again. But I think that a lot of teachers listening now would understand those two challenges you faced, about big challenges. Oh, I'm sure there were many others along the way, but the big ones of how to cope with composite classes and about getting people to take your music program seriously. So I love the advice you gave us around composite classes. And basically it sounds like you just moved the teaching sequence a little quicker while still covering what you needed to for the older ones, and then going back and revising it as the kids came through with sprinkling a bit of new repertoire. And I think basically that's the way to do it.
Because the twos moving on need to know what they know, need to know their skills and their knowledge. They have to have that to move on. And also some of them go to other schools. And
Yes.
I'd like to think that they were up to what they should have been up to, what I call,
Yes.
in having considering that some kids come in from other schools and have no idea what you're talking about. So,
Yeah, no, good advice, because you don't want the surrounding schools thinking, oh gosh, now I've got Mrs. O'Shea's kids. Yeah, no, I know, I know what you mean. All right, okay. Have you ever had a teaching moment that completely changed the way you think about music education?
well, that probably went right back to the very beginning, and even back further than the 16-week course, or no, certainly back further than the 10-week course. I went to a seminar in at the old Brisbane Conservatorium in the Gardens, and it had Deanna Herman there, and probably Judy Johnson, I think, and I'd never heard of this whole thing, this methodology, and that was probably the turning point. And they sang this song that I'd never heard before called Dinah. And no one in the house, and I might tell you that back in those days, there was no technology. If you wanted to remember Dinah, you quickly wrote down the solfa and the time names and because they didn't give you stuff, you just had to. But I thought this song had a so me in the middle of it, and wasn't that interesting? And I thought, gee, this is all new stuff. And that was probably the defining moment, having those and I think I joined Kodai back then in about 1980. And I've been a member ever since. So it's a long time. But that probably was a defining moment, I think, because it was different to anything else.
Yes. And I think sometimes it's just meeting those people and in that particular context. Actually, that reminded me, can I share a Kathryn story?
Me? Oh, you're going to share it?
Yeah, I want to share a story about you.
I bet I know what it is too, but go on.
Okay. Is it going to be Kathryn with the nose?
Kathryn with the nose, yes. I knew you'd remember. You've always remembered that.
Okay, I have to fill people in. So this is in Kodai Summer School, and we were in Ed Bolkovac's conducting group. Weren't we, Kathryn?
We were, and I was terrified by Ed Bolkovac, absolutely, completely and utterly terrified by him.
I think, Kathryn, you weren't alone. Ed, if you happen to be listening, we love you. I think of you as one of my mentors, but also you have been one of my tormentors. But you certainly are one of my mentors. Now, it was Kathryn's turn to conduct. Now, I really can't remember why you were asked to do this. But obviously it was to do with facial expression. And Ed asked you to conduct again, whatever you had just done, with your hands behind your back. And
he told me to use I'm sure he told me to use my nose.
He did.
But maybe he didn't. Yeah.
No, he did. He said, I would like you to be able to conduct this with your nose. So in your knowledge, not behind your back, it was you were Kathryn with the nose. Because
yes, right. And I was trying to do this sort of thing, and I don't think he really meant me to make it like the beats. I'm not sure what he meant, but I did my best.
I'm thinking what he meant was use facial expressions and cue parts in, not so much actually do the beat pattern, but it was just funny. And I mean, I knew you were Kathryn from Mackay, but you were Kathryn with the nose for a little while.
That's right, yes.
Very lovingly, you know that.
Yes, I do. It's all right. You have to be remembered for something, Debbie. Let's think about it. You have to.
You do.
There's nothing wrong with conducting with your nose, if that is requested of you.
Yeah, that's right.
I did it.
And actually, is there anything else funny or unexpected that's happened to you in your teaching or your professional development?
This again is a long time ago, but I had an upper, like about a grade 6, and we were doing Ida Red. Ida Red, Ida Blue. I got stuck on Ida 2, and all the different verses, and the children were making up their own verses with colours. And this grade 6 boy said, Ida Red, Ida Red, think I'll buy a bigger bed. And I was a bit stunned by that, but anyway, it rhymed.
Isn't that funny?
Yes. Yes, but that was always stuck in my memory as his verse from that song. Yes.
And do you know what? I've never had a child. In my when we innovate text, I've never had a child do Read Again.
No, that's right. He was the only one, and I was a bit interested when he did Read Again, and then I realised it had to rhyme with bed, and so I've just we moved on.
Oh,
but it was very, very interesting. Yes.
Okay. What is your favourite teaching tool?
Oh, look, I honestly really think it's my voice.
Yeah.
And it's an awful thing to say, my voice, my personality, using humour. I love the fact that, if they sent me into a room to do a music lesson as a supply teacher and they said, look, sorry, there's no power in here, I'd say, okay, and I would do a music lesson. And I couldn't turn on anything. Couldn't turn on a CD, so I think that really is the basic music tool. But there are others that you can, as you say. I found out very late in my career that the ukulele amazed me because I didn't ever use it for children to play chords. And I told them they were not going to play chords because I said, you don't have time to learn all of this. And so I used the open strings of the ukulele. And so we've got a do, mi, so, la. So there are lots of songs. And even and I found that the little ones, I didn't do them with grade ones. The grade ones used to say, why can't we do the ukulele? I said, because you don't read music yet. But when you can read music and you've got the staff and you can play it because we're reading music. They would, you can start with something like Mr. Sun on G and A. Oh, no, you wouldn't. I start with So and Me, actually, with, G and E and the little sun. And for some reason, they can do it. And they seem to keep in time, and they are stunned by it too, because they can hear this song being played and they pretty well all get it right. But not a lot of work on it. And I know they're a bit of a pain. They've got to be in tune, and you've got to do other things in your lessons. So you really have to be, the class, the ukulele Nazi, I suppose. The way you give them out, the way they hold them. You've got to be very, very disciplined. But they do love it when they can play so-mi songs and then solar songs and even the big kids, they've got that mi, so, la, like they can do in question and answer. If you're doing pizza, pizza, daddy-o, they can play the pizza, pizza, daddy-o bits, or they can play the step back bits, So you can do call, respond with a ukulele where they're just playing simple bits, but I never use it to teach them chords because I haven't got time at all. But the solfa is very good, and I don't even go into things like. Well, I never got that far. I've stopped teaching now, really full time. But I don't think I ever got into mi, re, do because I just wanted to use the ukulele on just open strings, Yeah. But and they can listen to you play chords. They know you do other things with the ukulele and you use it as an accompaniment instrument, but I just didn't do it with the kids.
Oh, but interesting. And that's a great teaching tool.
I just think that, to get 2 or 3 chords good enough to accompany yourself on a song, it takes them far too long and you're not doing other things that you could be teaching, that's all. But that's one thing that I found just recently in the last few years that I never suspected would be as good as it was.
Interesting. we're nearing the end. We're almost up to the rapid fire questions, but there's
Really?
just two other things I'd like to ask you. Just what advice would you give to a graduate you? So let's say you're graduating as a music teacher first up. What advice would you give to you as a graduating music teacher?
I would do as much professional development would. Now, this was the thing that Judy and I did. When music got going in Mackay, it was also very, very popular in Townsville and Cairns, and we all did a winter school, and we rotated around the years. And I think Judy and I went to every winter school. Of course, we'd go to our own in Mackay, then we'd go up to the Townsville one, we'd go up to the Cairns one, and these rotated for years. And we just went to all of them. We had a fantastic time. We spent a lot of time laughing for some reason, but just good fun. But you just learn so much. And I was still doing professional. I still do it occasionally just because of the fun of it. You know, I'll go along with my daughter and I'll say, I'll come along to nuts and bolts just because I'm a bit nutty, but I have good memories and you learn new stuff. So that's what I would do. And if you're lucky enough to have a network, we'll work with your network as well and ask questions. But I just think PD is really essential.
I could not agree. Yeah, I could not agree more. I could not agree more. And what do you wish more people understood about being a music teacher?
Well, apart from we complain a lot, don't we? Everyone does that with their own job, but we should. But it is a joyful job, and it is a wonderful thing to be. Yes, it is hard work, but it's lovely to meet children years later, or when they're even older, and have them come back to you and tell you what they remember about your music lessons. And so it is a wonderful experience. So you put the work in and you get the results out, and yes, some days are not good, like everything else. I was in Mackay a couple of years ago just having a quiet swim in the Blue Water Keys, and this young lady swam up to me and she said, "You were my music teacher." And I said, "Yes, I was." And she said, "I'll never forget," she said, "one day I said that I was going to leave the choir, and you said, 'You can't leave the choir because we need you.'" And she was absolutely stunned that she couldn't leave the choir because I felt that I needed her in the choir. She was part of the choir. But she was an adult when she came up. For some reason, she thought she remembered that she enjoyed someone saying to her, "We need you.
Yeah.
You're important." So, you don't. And also there are kids that aren't overly academic, but they can be very musical. And for some kids, that's a brighter spot in their day because they're doing things that they can do well. Whereas some other classes, they can't do overly well in a lot of things. So there are reasons why that's what music teaching is all about. There's hundreds of them, aren't there?
Yes.
You can only pick out the few things that you can remember. But I've had a few people follow me on and become music teachers just because of their experience they had when they were in class learning music. And this probably happens in maths and physics as well. But it certainly sometimes it happens in music. So there are lots of very rewarding moments, lots of hard work and a bit of drama in between.
Absolutely. Oh, look, Kathryn, before we get the rapid fire questions, it's been so lovely talking to you. And it's actually a bit of a shame it's taken the podcast for me to take time to talk to you. I've really enjoyed talking to you again. Yes.
And I have to say that, the whole thing is thrown back on, the network in Mackay had my back all the way. We've got, lovely Patty Cortis and Therese and Marilyn, and you go on with all the people. But, they were there and we collaborated well and did things well, and that was a great support to have. that wonderful network. And I would like to let the world know that we were, unique is an overused word, but some of us were around for 30, the same people for 30 choral festivals, same people running them, this sort of thing. So it was pretty special.
It's a very special network.
And still carrying on, still
is.
Surviving without me, Debbie.
Oh, look, it's not the same without you.
The nose.
The nose, Kathryn with the nose. Oh,
yes.
We've all, look, and the fact is, even because I've just actually stepped off the Kodai Queensland Committee, which was a big thing, but I know I've done my bit to help build that, and people build upon your work. So, everybody, I'm sure you and everyone else that was involved in the Mackay network have built it to be what it is. So I think you should be very proud of that.
Yes, well, our group thanks you.
I love them. They know that. All right, so we're going to say goodbye, and I'm going to give you the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready, I hope.
Yes. There are 5. Here we go. So this is your opinion, of course, on all of them. What's the most underrated instrument?
Well, everyone will scream, but I think it's the recorder, and it needs to be played well. And when parents complain to me and say, my child is making this terrible racket, and I say, well, just discipline your children and let them know that you can play the recorder gently, and they can. And again, it takes a lot of discipline and not letting them run around the school. But yes, and there are some lovely pieces of recorded music that have recorders in them, apart from back in the day when they were the instrument, in the medieval times. There's a Beatles song with the recorder in it, and there's another song that I've got on my phone that's got recorder in it. So they're still used and they fit in well. So that's it. That's a controversial one.
Yes, I agree though. 2, who's your musical hero and how have they influenced you?
Oh, look, I think my musical heroes probably, getting back to our network, probably Judy Crean, really, because she was a wonderful person and she was so giving to everyone and she shared well, and she put a lot of work in the early days into our network. So I'm just thinking locally. I'm not going globally here, but she was a wonderful lady. And as she's not with us now, I think that it's important that we still remember her, and you can still buy her material through James's organisations and possibly yours. I don't know if you've got anything of Judy's, but she.
No, Crescendo doesn't sell resources of other people's.
No,
I just specialise in my own, but I actually have noted down that in the show notes, I'm going to link to Judy Crean's materials. So it will be through Comiskey School of Music and Sound Thinking. So I'll put in the links so people can have a look at what's available, because she certainly gave so much to music education.
Yes, and she was just clever. Oh. And I might tell you, I've never seen anyone with handwriting like hers. One of the first Ed Bulkeback books of canons, she hand wrote it, the whole book. And he because that was before, or what's that? All these music writing programs have come in. She hand wrote it, and I've never seen. People can't believe that these resources are handwritten.
Yes, yeah, beautiful. And her drawings, and she's so creative. Oh, an amazing person. Yes, I'm glad you picked
my
Judy.
hero.
I'm glad you picked Judy Crean. Great. 3, what's a song or piece of music you wish you'd written?
Oh, golly, I think I've mucked that up because I've written in my answers Judy Crean next to that question. So I've just talked about her. However, she did write some gorgeous little songs in her books that were so clever, and they were things to. There was this wonderful book, a song that she wrote about attributes, where she had these monsters, and these monsters were either fat or thin. They were either hairy or spiky, and they either had sharp claws or big paws. So as you were singing this song, a child would sit in front of the class and hold up a picture facing the class. He didn't know what picture he had. And the children would look at the picture and sing, and I'm not going to sing it, I don't think. My voice is almost gone. You know, what kind of scary thing rumbles and roars? A fat, hairy monster with very sharp claws? Or it might have been a thin, spiky monster with very fat paws. And, and they would sing it to the child, and the child would, I know what they did. He would have to go to the array of all these pictures and pick out the ones that the class sang. So they were learning attributes. Now I thought that was an amazing song.
Yes,
So there you are.
I have not done that song for years. It is such a good song. Do you know what? I'm going to get out Judy's books again. Anyway,
Yes,
I love that.
And heaps of them, about, they were so good, and all for little kids, basically, days of the week, months of the year. How do you go to school today? Shapes, all sorts of things. She wrote that way before she was ever a music teacher. She wrote that book when she was an infant teacher.
Yes.
And so that was what she did with her class.
But you could tell she really understood child development and what was appropriate for little kids. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Right, Judy.
All right.
So I got out of that one.
All right. Yeah, no, that's good. Number 4, if you could perform a duet with any musician, living or dead, who would it be?
Well, I'm going to go really local here. I love singing duets with my daughter because she has a much better voice than me and it makes mine sound good. And she's very musical. I like singing with people that make me sound better, But I must tell you a story about singing with my children. When they were probably young adults or teenagers, they sang a trio in the Stedford and they came first. And then I got up with them and we did the quartet section and we came second. I've just got someone trying to phone me and I don't know what to do about it. Are we back?
Ignore them. Ignore them.
Good. So when we did the quartet, we came second. And, remember Dr. Christopher Kiver?
Yes.
Remember him at all? He was the
Chris
adjudicator. And after they won the trio and we came second in the quartet, he said, well, it's easy to see the weak link in the chain, isn't it?
Oh.
So that's my story about singing with other people. There you are.
I love it. All right,
yes.
Here's our last question. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can bring back that person. If music teachers had a theme song, what do you think it should be?
We gather here together.
Oh,
I have to sing. Yeah. We have to sing. I didn't think of that. I was thinking of all other songs. And yesterday I thought, we gather here together with joyful heart and song. And the very last line, that music made together may one day heal mankind. And I should be singing it, but I really, I can't be Zoomed and podcasted and I can't do everything at once, Debbie.
No. So, I think you're doing remarkably well. But to have Harmonia Mundi, which is what it's called, I'll actually make sure that's in the show notes. And that is, it's got a special place for us people in Australia anyway. I'm not sure if it's overseas, that we start our conferences and our workshops often with singing, we gather here together. Yes. It's just, I love it. And I think that is a beautiful way to finish.
Just one last thing. We shouldn't be too worried about the world because the man that wrote it in the 1500s and he was looking to heal the world. So perhaps we've always had to heal the world. And perhaps at the moment where we think perhaps the world is unhealable, it's lasted from the 1500s to now and we hope that it's still healable. But if it is, music's got to have a bit to do with it, hasn't it?
Absolutely, Kathryn.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And I know all of my listeners, thank you for sharing your experiences.
Yes, and if I can get to listen to the podcast, I might say, look, don't put me on, I'm not good at this. I hope it all works technologically, because things have been popping up and people have been phoning me, but we made it.
We've done it.
So,
Go.
Thank you very much. And this was not for me, it was for my network, I'm telling you. It was such a special part of my life.
And we're celebrating the Mackay network. Go,
yes,
Mackay
we are.
network.
Yes, keep working, Mackay. Okay, then.
As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. Why are Saturday and Sunday the strongest? Because the others are weekdays. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education podcast. For more information about all things Crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe.